Hello and good afternoon to the Elets Innovation Talk series, a segment where we feature industry leaders who let us know and take us through their journey and the innovative work that they're doing in their respective domains. And joining us today for this innovation talk is Himanshu Kumar Gupta, Director, Government and Defense Business, India at Trend Micro. Welcome, Himanshu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
He comes with an extensive industry experience of 2 decades in business development, consulting, and team management in government and enterprise for IT services, where he played a pivotal role in securing key achievements within the government sector, expanding business into the central, state, defense, and public sector enterprises. So, Himanshu, to begin with, from your overview, what is the overall threat landscape facing the government today, and how is it evolving? And also, what are the biggest concerns and challenges?
See, threat landscape for government is it's constantly evolving. It is in fact, increasing as the government is pushing for more digital initiatives. So we see government coming out with newer and newer projects for citizens, for taxpayers. So as the government landscape increases, the threat also increases. So mainly we see a couple of challenges here. One of the challenges, the kind of a data leak that we are seeing in many of the government department. I mean, the biggest example here is what we have seen in UIDI, which is a
Right.
personal information leak that has happened as per the media reports. It has a huge data that is available on the dark web. Then we have also seen ransomware as another challenge that we often encounter in government, and the most prominent name that comes to my mind is what happened in Ames, because
Yes.
the entire production, everything was disrupted with time, and they took a long time to come back. And if you really look at it from the angle of what is happening geopolitically, the Indian government seems to be at the center stage for that. A recent report, I think yesterday only I was reading in newspaper, the attack on government installation in India has gone up by 460% in last 2 years. And not only that, if you see the attacks that are happening across the globe on various countries, India is the number one targeted country. I mean, of all the attacks that has happened in last 1.5 years, 13.5% has actually been targeted towards India. I mean, second
Right.
is United States, which is around 9.5%. So that is the kind of an environment in where we are living. So security obviously is the biggest threat, and this government is pushing big time for digital economy. So it is directly related to that.
Right, right. So, in terms of such a huge threat landscape that we are witnessing, how can governments and the private sector collaborate more effectively to build a comprehensive, resilient cybersecurity strategy for critical infrastructure?
So there are, I mean, there is no dearth of talent in India for sure, and there are various areas in which government and private sector can collaborate. One of the very prominent area is sharing threat intelligence. I mean, a lot of threat intelligence is there with companies like us and many other private companies. And government statutory bodies and regulatory bodies do also have a lot of threat intelligence. But we seldom see any kind of a merger happening between the two where the information is being shared freely. One of the reasons for that could be, maybe there isn't a framework that is available uh,
Right,
which can really take care of how and in what frequency and in what format and what kind of commercial terms etc are there for this threat intelligence which can be shared between the two sides. Second area which we see is the incident response. I mean, there isn't really any collaboration between the players like us and government sector. I mean, we are working very closely globally with a lot of government agencies in various countries. Like Interpol, we work very closely. In India, also, we are working with prominent agencies where we try to provide whatever help we can do. But that's more like, we are forthcoming. It's not within any kind of a framework or any kind of a understanding. where we try to tell
Mhm.
government that these are the vulnerabilities that exist, this is a threat that we are seeing, but there isn't any structured approach to that. So I think second one, which I said, incident response is something where two sides need to collaborate, because if as and when the incidents happens, then that is a time where actually there is a chaos. No one knows
Mhm.
what really needs to be done. There is a breach which is there. There is malware which is sitting in the system, and users are getting impacted. So they want anything and everything to be done right now, and that is how it doesn't work really till the time you have a proper framework available, people role being assigned, and being very clear who needs to do what. Third area which
Right.
I think where private sector and government can collaborate is towards education and training. I mean, there is a lot of
Mhm.
intelligence, a lot of skilled people that are available in private enterprises. So government can obviously take advantage of that, and can
Mhm.
skill up their resources in public sector units as well as government department. So these are the three areas that I clearly see.
So, interestingly, you've just led me on to my next question, which is about, creating a skilled cyber workforce. Because as we discussed, there is an increasingly sophisticated threats that are coming up. So, what are the strategies do you recommend for, the government to create this skilled cyber workforce?
I think one of the very prominent thing which I am so, myself often wonder about it is that why cybersecurity is not there from the very primary level of education, because it's something which is extremely critical. It is very important. Prime Minister himself has said a couple of times about cybersecurity concern, and in a country like India, which is developing so rapidly, this is the very very prominent and a looming threat. So we are seeing, guidelines coming from Power Ministry about how power sector is so precarious to all kind of threat. But we haven't seen any center of excellence being developed by, any of the power utilities and power companies and power utilities. Power gencos are huge on money. They have a lot of resources and money and skill set also. Maybe a time to look at coming out with a center of excellence for power. Similarly, center of excellence for urban development, like metros now is a hot target. So
Right.
that government employees, government department people can visit this center of excellence, can learn their short
Mhm.
courses designed around that, where they also look at not only the IT part of it, the OT part of it also, because OT is also that equivalently important. So that is the second part which I believe government should be doing. And I think third part is that somebody who is passing out with a prominent degree in cybersecurity, government can try create roles for that, maybe in specific
Right.
department, so that they see that as a a career path, which are equivalent to certain other roles that government generally has in PSUs and in government departments.
Right. Very well said. So Himanshu, as more and more services and data move to the cloud, now what must the governments do to ensure that security translates effectively to public clouds?
Mhm. See, what we are seeing is the cloud adoption that is happening over a period of time. It has not happened. Maybe that is one of the reason why maybe it has not come on the radar. Is that we need a very effective, policy framework for anything that is being deployed on cloud. At this point in time, every department has their own way of doing things. And if you look at the cloud service providers in India, I mean, they right from the very very bottom of the pyramid to someone like Google or Amazon, we have all kind of cloud service providers in India. And once we have some kind of a framework which really takes into account what should be there and what are the security standard when something is being hosted on cloud, if that is clearly defined, it would help a lot. Second important part is that whenever a government is doing any procurement, right, for application or anything that needs to be hosted on the cloud, security seems to be something which is often left to the cloud service providers to decide. Maybe the reason is that government department people in government department themselves are not that aware of what really security should be. So security still we see as taking a backstage. In fact, One of the way of thinking is that we don't have to get into it. Cloud service provider will take care of the security part. But we are seeing cloud service provider themselves getting compromised now. So they are not even 100% secure. So I believe the government department needs to be very, very specific about what they need, and the security has to be something that comes in first, not the last thing. So if it
Right.
comes in first, then you can really think deep about it, ask question, get the industry consultation, and then come out with something. Because government projects are big, they spend a lot of money, but
Mhm.
somehow security is still being missed, specifically in cloud.
Right. So, do you think there is a need to foster a culture of security across government organizations? And if yes, then probably what could be done to do that?
Definitely, definitely, it starts from top. Maybe HODs or the directors in government department, they need to own it
Mhm.
up. I mean, they have to
Right.
inculcate a culture which says that security is everyone's responsibility. It is not one person's responsibility, because it is one person who can compromise everyone else within the government network. So that thought process has to be there, and I believe uh, it has to be enforced also to a large extent. So one part is
Right.
that we are creating awareness within the government
Mhm.
department, within public sector unit, that security belongs to everyone. Then we are
Mhm.
also trying to reward and recognize individuals who are showing a prominent behavior when there is some kind of a security compromise or security breach that happens. And we are giving enough avenues, the government department, the people giving enough avenues for people to learn, do certification. And if possible, I don't know to what extent it is possible, but if this can be tied to their yearly appraisal cycle, how much have they really
Right. Mhm.
acquired in security, because that seems to be a very prominent way of enforcing it. Because
Mhm.
if you don't enforce, it won't go anywhere. People still do certification, but they would forget next day. So if it is tied to their appraisal or some mechanism which kind of hold them accountable to this, then obviously the result could be different. So I think these two things are very important from the point of view that we are enforcing, a culture. Another thing that government department should prepare for is that what if the incident
Mhm.
happens, what do we do?
Right.
So protection is one part of the story, but protection is it's a given that you are going to be breached someday. If you are prominent installation set up in government, you are going to be breached. The only point is when and to what extent. But
Right.
most of the time, we have seen in many government department, they're not even aware that the information is being stolen, because today the
Right.
attacks are so sophisticated, right? The user doesn't know anything about it. He's doing his job just like any other day. So
Mhm.
a proper incident response mechanism, that once we identify that there is something going on in our network, then it needs to be tackled in a certain way. At this
Right.
juncture, I don't think so any government department, bearing few one, maybe critical sector like finance or something, where it is directly linked to money, and if you don't do anything, you are open to litigation and whatnot. So otherwise, in general, in government department, there is nothing called an incident response. They still rely on some external source or something. But a
Mhm.
proper mechanism, making the roles responsibility of individuals clear about it, how are we going to respond, etc. That is important. Uh, Also, another important thing that comes to my mind is maybe government bodies who are like statutory bodies. Maybe they also need to work very closely with government department, because see,
Right.
a lot of things you can only do when there is a baseline set for it. In most of the
Mhm.
government
True.
project and government installation, there is no baseline. You would see many of the systems not running with the proper support, vulnerability is not being fixed, no one is accountable. So the baseline doesn't exist. So tomorrow, if some compromise
Right.
happen, that is a time when we try to, government department learns from it, and then they say, okay, now we will set up baseline. So many of these third bodies like certain NCIPCs, they are working on, coming out with certain guidelines which talks about setting up a baseline. Once you have a baseline, then you say, okay, now above this baseline, I need to prevent everything. I need to prevent my asset. I need to prevent my critical data. So what should be my incident response program around this?
Right, right. So, amidst all these challenges and, the environment that we are in, how is Trend Micro helping, to provide a solution to these challenges?
But Trend Micro is a prominent vendor. We are there in this line for last 35 years. And in India, in government sector, we are also very, very prominent. You name any project, you will find foothold of Trend Micro in some way or the other. What we have
Right.
recently done is that, given that the kind of attack that we see, the sophistication of attack that we see across the board, we are asking our customer to take a platform centric approach. We have seen many vendors who give silo solution or a point solution, but it's not about only one point. It is like closing the door but keeping the windows open, so it
Mhm.
doesn't really solve much of a purpose. So what we are doing now is that we are asking more and more customers to adopt our platform. We are trying to build up knowledge and awareness around platform. We're trying to tell people, and making them aware on the threat intelligence that our platform can cater to. And we call that platform as a cyber defense platform by the name of Vision One. And that is
Mhm.
a layer which sits on top of all of our other offerings, which are there on the network side, on the user side, so that our customer gets a comprehensive visibility of not only um, what is happening in the environment. Customer clearly understand the indicators of attack that are evolving, so that even before the attack is there prominently and it disrupts something, you can figure out that the network is not, there is something going on in the network, and the SOC team and any other team, security operations team, can definitely take action around that. So I think we are strongly recommending people to go with a comprehensive approach, so that you are covering all aspect, all open end when it comes to your cybersecurity.
Right. Just one last thing, looking ahead, how do you see this threat landscape evolving? And, one key takeaway, if you have to say, what would it be?
From the For the government.
From, yes, for the government.
So I think government needs to understand that, see, digital initiatives are not going to stop. Digital initiative will go on, and they would only gather pace, right? Where we used to see hardly any digital thought process, there also government is pushing a lot of digital things. So digital economy is there
Right.
to stay. We also need to understand the entire threat landscape, and the threat story is directly proportional to the increasing landscape of the digital services that you are providing. So I think only thing that can keep you ahead of the game is that you are very well aware as a government department that, okay, this is my attack surface management, this is my attack surface, this is what I am protecting, this is what I have to protect at any cost. It is my crown jewel, right? So my
Right.
strategy should be around that. It is not
Mhm.
possible for you to protect 100% of whatever you have, but you can obviously protect with all your might that 10%, 20%. But important aspect is to identify what is that 10%, 20%. So I think government department needs to be very open from that point of view, and there needs to be a conscious effort and exercise around that, so that maybe a documentation around that, that this is what as a department we stand for, and this is what we need to protect, come whatever is the situation, and then design your strategy around that, in terms of using the right tools and technique, in terms of training people, in terms of understanding what kind of threat exists. So the threat could be different for power sector versus urban mobility. So if you are in power
Right.
sector, you should know, and there is a lot of information available that what is happening in the power sector, and you design your strategy, your protective strategy accordingly. So I think it is all about being really aware and taking the effort in that direction.
Right. Perfect. Great, Himanshu. It was wonderful speaking to you and, listening to your insights. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.